Guys, this week there's been a storm here in Marbella. Every loose item has been flying around everywhere, up and down, sideways, round and around. My villa is 2 minutes from the beach. This piece of real estate has not moved once. It's not gone down, it's not gone sideways, it's not been under threat. This is the power of real estate and real assets. Hence the clue is in the name, real estate, real. In markets as we are now, where other investments are seemingly going up and down, things are uncertain. One thing is that property will always remain constant. The trick is to pivot our management of these assets, of our properties, to our advantage. Sit through this video. I'll show you how I'm making more money than ever by applying these strategies to my real estate portfolio in the UK. It's been turmoil for landlords recently, with renters reform, stamp duty changes, and generally the anti-landlord rhetoric is doing landlords no favours. In fact, many landlords are selling because of this and are exiting. Usually the exiting is not, when you're selling when it's down, it's hard. So they're selling tenanted properties, they're selling at a great discount. We're picking up bargains all the time. Guys, if you're a landlord watching this and you are exiting, think very hard and think twice about it. So either go hard or go home. And fair enough, if you don't want to go hard, go home. But make sure you sell your properties vacant. If you're selling it tenanted, someone like us will come and buy it 30% below market value. So just to let you know that, guys. So why haven't I sold and cashed in? One would argue I'm sitting on a big portfolio, 50% or less loan to value. There's millions there. Why haven't I sold, and why and how am I pivoting? Firstly, let's talk numbers. Quite frankly, I do not believe we're at the top of, anywhere near the top of the market in terms of prices or rental prices, demand, etc. Remember I discussed this in the last video with smaller operators forcibly leaving. Demand is higher, supply is lower. The exact conditions where you can clean up. So bear that in mind, guys. You can definitely clean up even if you're getting started today. Let me ask you a serious question now. Do you think there's going to be more or less landlords in the UK next year? Exactly, less. So do you think there's going to be more or less supply? At the moment there's going to be less. What happens? It's inevitable, like gravity. It's an equation. Prices go up. Not only do prices go up, you can choose your tenants better, you get more access to properties, you know, it's definitely a buyer's market now in terms of buying properties. Sellers can't dictate prices, they can't dictate terms. Even with the stamp duty increases, with most of my clients and myself included have at least negotiated 50% off a price or got that paid in full by the seller. So secondly, the other thing is, apart from demand, because landlords are selling, we're in an inflationary environment, guys. Labour's in control, tax and spend. And I told this to you before, I predicted this previously. And look at the news now. Rates have been increased because they're factoring in that it's going to be inflationary, tax and spend, and they need inflation to pay off the national debt. So they inflate it, and technically the debt increases and decreases. And that's also true of our mortgage debt. The more inflation happens, the debt remains constant, the asset goes up. Our debt of, I don't know, 100k on a mortgage will be nothing. It'll be like 30k in 5 years. So, and that's 5 years or to 10 years, but the way it's going, it could actually be 5 years. So I did predict this previously. As I said, look in the news now. I never miss with these things, so I'll just drop a news article now and show you that mortgage rates, yes, they're going up slightly. It's a price to pay though. The rents are going up more. Rent always outpaces inflation, guys, and so do property prices. So bear that in mind. Yes, you might pay a little bit more on a mortgage because the lenders and the markets are factoring in that the swap rates will be higher because there'll be more inflation, but it's actually a good thing for us. And if it wasn't a good thing for us, why do you think the big operators are getting into the market now? Why do you think even foreign funds feel like it's an attractive market, UK property? They can invest anywhere in the world, any asset. Why do you think smart money is going towards UK property, and in particular build to rent? That is where they buy a piece of land, they spend millions building it. Look at that investment. They're not just buying somebody else's property, they're building it and then they're renting it. It's a very long-term strategy. They have to build it, they're spending millions. They wouldn't be doing that if they weren't confident of, one, the rental, two, the price rises. As you know, it's a lot of money for UK to buy UK land, it's a lot of money to build. And it's a 18-month to 36-month project, then they've got to fill every unit, so they wouldn't be doing that. And they're buying in places where you can't just buy a piece of land in Manchester City Centre anymore and build like 100 homes. And this is what these big house builders tend to build, 100 homes to make the profit. They don't make profit on 5 homes. So they're buying outskirts, and even on the outskirts in, off motorway exits around the big city centres or the big places in the UK, they're literally out of the way on motorway exits. They're still building, guys, build to rent. So that's a massive clue. Okay, so also, quickly, someone commented on the video saying it's not true that inflation helps us because the one price goes up. So when you want to sell that one and buy your neighbour's house, you're also going to pay more for your neighbour's house. That is true, but we're not going to sell 50 houses and buy the same 50 houses back. Because if a landlord sells a property, it's because they're exiting the game. They're not going to sell all their prize assets if they're bought correctly. Like, I'm not going to sell all my assets in Salford or Manchester city centre and then try and buy it back for the same price. It's not going to happen. So remember, guys, we also get it on every single house. And people who say, yeah, but it doesn't make a difference because you're buying your neighbours when you sell yours. Yes, that's for your personal. That's not business related. I'm talking about a business property portfolio, not one property which has gone up. You sell it, you have to move. You say your family's moving and you have to buy another one. Of course, you're not going to benefit because when you sell yours, you're going to pay for more for the others. But if you've got a portfolio of 50 and you sell, yes, you are going to benefit because you're not going to buy the same 50 again in the same places. You're most likely cashing out at that point, like 55-year-old landlords are now, who've made millions and probably going to spend it abroad, quite frankly. And I don't blame them. So just bear that in mind, guys. Remember as well, rent and property prices always outpace inflation if you look at the graphs. But even then, the trick is to growing wealth through properties, to apply leverage, take profits and play with free house money. This is a really important concept. So how do we do that? Well, guys, we find a property below market value. Now, I put 100k profit in there, but let's say there's 30k profit. We then take our profit out of this property. So I put 50 grand here because there's 100k, but say if it was 30, we reinvest it into our game plan, which I'll talk about in a minute, to buy another one. And then we're playing with free house money. What that effectively means is we're leveraging against our profits and we're leaving nothing on the table from our own bank. It's like it's like winning on the casino, putting 10,000 on red, winning 100k, okay, and then taking the initial 10k or probably more. You're playing with free money then. So that's what we're doing. Now, obviously there's risk to leverage, but if you're buying assets in high demand areas, and most of the UK, you could argue, is high demand, even if you've got a village somewhere, there's, as I said before, the rental stock is so low that it will be. The only, obviously, risk is that you can't stand, it's a term saying you can't stand the debt, you can't stand the monthlies, but if it's rented and you're buying properly and you're buying at the rental income is far exceeding the mortgage rates and it's been stress tested, which we do on every deal, that shouldn't be a problem. And obviously don't spend all your money, all your profit, put it back in, okay? Because there's a lot of landlords who used to make a lot of money from rent and just spend it all and just not pay the mortgage. It's financially irresponsible, but the banks wouldn't lend to you if they thought this could happen. So, because remember, you could have I've got a personal guarantee of probably 25 million. I'm not worth 25 million. So the banks wouldn't lend to you if they thought you were going to mess it up, if that was going to happen. So one, if they thought it wouldn't rent out, hence the surveyor's reports. Two, if they thought that it's not financially prudent, like say example, you were getting a buy-to-let mortgage and every month you were making a loss, well, they wouldn't lend to you guys. So, but effectively we are playing with house money. We're leaving the money we've created on the table, we're taking our money out, and that's the smart way. We've taken profits, usually after 6 months. Sometimes we do it on day one if we're buying and we can demonstrate we've had a bit of value. Or, as I said, 3 to 6 months, you remortgage out, you're playing with house money, you take your money back in. So effectively, you can have infinite growth if you do this, and you just reinvest, okay? Now, I've kind of talked about the exit plan. For me, the exit plan is to remortgage, and even if I was going to sell, I'll just remortgage everything and go again. But that's the exit plan. But more importantly, guys, on this video, I want to talk about the management plan. So you need the 3 elements. You need the game plan, which is buying properties below market value, sourcing them, paying a sourcer, doing it yourself, getting in relationships, etc. But making sure every property you buy, there's house money you can play with. You can take your money out and leave that money on the table. There's no point buying a house in this day and age unless it's fantastic returns. For example, you buy a 100k house and for some reason it's rented for 50k a year, which is never going to happen. But there's no point buying a house for market value and renting it to a normal family and expecting to do well in this industry anymore. Those days are well over. You need to be buying the best properties for the cheapest amount, but also that can get the best rent to carry on growing your portfolio. Okay, so the days of just buying next door because you want to put it away instead of a pension, and you're not really bothered, you're making 200 quid a month from one property, which a lot of landlords used to do, and I've got a lot of landlords contacting me about this. They're making 200-300 quid and saying, why can't I grow my portfolio? Well, you bought the wrong houses in the first place. So if I were you, I'd be looking at getting social housing in there, increasing your rent somehow, or selling that property and reinvesting the profits into somewhere where you can get high growth and high rental from social housing. But let me take you into a social housing management plan. So my plan now in my portfolio is to really work on a management plan, guys. So the management plan is how you're managing the assets in this business so you can continually grow. Because there's no point having a good part of 100k, buying three very good houses from me, for example, and then literally going, oh, I can't be bothered with, I'll just give it to the estate agent and they'll get it. Because you're going to get slowed down and it's going to go wrong for you. So with this management plan, we're literally making hundreds of thousands of pounds renting to social housing. This social housing is the management plan now. It's managing the assets as best as we can. Why are we doing social housing? I've been through this in many different videos, but I'll go through it once again. More rent, no voids. And I'm talking about voids in between tenancies here. If you get a good family for a year, and they naturally move out, then you've got to re-tenant it, clean it, etc., etc. It's getting harder to deduct deposits. You've got to market it again. Estate agent fees are likely to go up because national insurance is going up. Everything's going up. So even our independent agents are charging a bit more. So you won't have this if you get a 3 to 5 year contract. You've got no tenants to deal with. Who wants to deal with tenants now? They all know the rights. Even more, they overreach. They like, oh, I don't have to pay you. We can go to court and I'll just say there's disrepair when there's not. For example, I've had one of them myself. You don't want to eat away your profits with RGI, rent guarantee insurance, because again, that's another scam where it takes you ages to get it. They're very easy to sell it to you, but again, it's like 10%, 15% of your profits gone. And that's even if they're going to pay out, right? And they only pay out, by the way, guys, RGI, if the tenant's had a professional job and been fully referenced and credit checked and has a guarantor. So effectively, they give it the policy on tenants who you don't need the policy with. Like, does that make sense? Like, no high risk tenants or tenants without credit history or don't own a property or don't have a mortgage or owns a guarantor or owns a property. They're very unlikely to get RGI insurance. So it's kind of like, it's not going to really help you there, especially when you're doing HMOs and stuff. So we don't want to deal with tenants. We don't want to deal with renters reform, which is all the new legislation to do with how to, what your responsibilities are to tenants, but they don't have the same responsibility to you. It's very skewed. And the reason why I went into the last video is that they don't want the small operators who can't operate on this level. Now, a big company, if they have a problem tenant, it doesn't matter. One, tenants are less likely to mess about with big companies because they have the best law firms. Number two, they can take a loss on a 5,000 unit portfolio. They don't really, it's not going to affect the directors in the boardroom going, oh, room 4 hasn't paid this month and room 10 hasn't paid and room 20 hasn't paid in our portfolio of 5,000. So maybe we have to wait a bit before we buy the next property. That doesn't happen. It's a totally different game plan. It's just a cost of business. So, but it does affect even myself. If I've got 5 or 6 people not paying, I'm hesitant to buy another 4 more properties to fill. Do you know what I mean? So it does affect us, whatever level we are. So what we want to do is avoid all this, guys, and that's what I'm doing with social housing. Once I do the work, so it used to be the case, I'd get a house, I'd do the work once, and then it'd be paid. It'd be full forever, and it still is full forever. The problem we're getting now is we're filling it, okay, 5 people or 4 people. One of them's a problem. One of them knows the rules. One of them knows the game, kind of thing. So 1 out of 5 is lost. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes we're in a rush. We've got 30 rooms to fill, and we get 1 bagged egg, for example. Okay. So that's what used to happen. And we do the work once and we set and forget. Now, it's getting difficult to do that. I've just explained that. So what we're doing now is buy the asset, do the work once. But the funny thing is, there's hardly any work to do, guys, because social housing, if you've got the right contacts and you've got crucially, the right area. So the property's got to be in an area of fantastic demand on the professional market. No point having a social housing property in Scarborough and trying to get more than market rent when the operators can go and get a market rent house for very cheap. But where's your like central Manchester, central Warrington, where we're buying Northwest, all other areas, they can't actually get a property off the market themselves, so they'll come to us. And rent-to-rent operators can't get it either because it's so what they can. I mean, we teach a couple of people to do that, but in general, they're not going to have 100 properties thrown at them going, take this, because there's not the properties there. That's why we need to buy in really good locations. And this location first has always been how I built my business. Even here in Marbella, bought this villa based on location. The price has gone up based on location. I could have got a bigger villa in the hills, but guess what? There wouldn't be all this development around. So that just shows location first in any market, especially for social housing. And it applies, it's funny how it applies even in Marbella here, where it's a leisure villa with a pool, to a social housing terrace in the middle of a wet and rainy UK city. It's funny how location plays a massive part, isn't it? But property's location first. You don't need to worry about anything else. You can have a villa in Scarborough with a swimming pool in the backyard, and social housing will still turn it down based on price. Do you know what I mean? Because it's location. Whereas, and they're very specific, because I get messages all the time from our providers going, we need a house in Nottingham. I've got one in Derby. No, but Derby's not Nottingham. Yeah, but it's 20 minutes away. Doesn't matter. We want one in Nottingham. Do you see how location plays a big part of it? So that's just by the by location. Okay, so we do the work once, and the work is to find the property below market value in the right location with the right layout for social housing. We then do the work more by contacting our panel, etc., and clients who've come to me. We're in the process of doing that. We can't speed this game up because they've got so much on. They're trying to house 1,000 people, etc. One of my providers and an individual operator who work on behalf of councils. But when we're patient and we get that rent in and we get that contract, okay, we can secure it to 3 to 5 years. We've then done the work once. We've got the rental income, which is predictable, no bills, no maintenance, etc. We've got stable cash flow. And then what we can do is, for our game plan, this management is ticked off. We don't have any management fees either, no estate agent costs, because it's a corporate let, so we don't need any estate agents, so we don't need to pay 10%. 10% estate agent costs, 10% RGI insurance, letting fee, blah, 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 blah. Is eating into the profit, guys. And this is why landlords come to me and go, I've only got 3 properties. Because they don't realise over the course of a year how many fees they're paying. And the voids. And we all get voids. I get voids in Manchester City Centre. People move. You could have the best location. People still move. So we don't get this for 3 to 5 years. We don't get headaches. We don't get this. Very predictable. Then we've got the confidence to go and buy as many properties as we can and keep filling it with social housing. We're making consistent, if we know we've got 6 properties and we're going to make £8,000 a month in rent roll every month, even if there's a leak because they're fixing it. Whereas before, if there was a leak in a boiler, 1 month you got 4, 1 month you got 3, another month you don't pay. Do you see where I'm coming from? So social housing, not only do we get more rent, more void, more rent is contentious. Where we've got locations with single lets in Manchester and Northwest, some of our lets are getting more on social housing from day one. When I mean more, it means social housing would pay me 1,600 where I would have got 1,300. That's more rent. But also, guys, even if you don't get more rent, you are actually getting more rent because you don't have any of the maintenance, you don't have any of these problems. In effect, you'll have more in your pocket. Even if the rent's the same, you'll still have more and you'll have less headache. So that's how I'm making thousands, guys. I am actually getting more rent on my single lets, not on my HMOs, because my HMOs are £700-800 a room. And we do need a balance. We can't give everything to one provider or one social housing because their funding might decrease. It might go. They might, there's risks as well, and we do want a balance. So we do, on my portfolio of over 150 rooms, I might have 2 bad eggs, but it's counteracted by my social housing single lets where it's consistent, and I'm slowly closing this off as the market gets better and there's more demand and there's more people living in HMOs. We've got doctors living in HMOs. Okay, so we are closing this problem off, but with the single lets, it's very hard to close this problem off because a family could have a job one day and the next day they could not have a job, or they could have a relationship breakdown and a husband moves and the bills, the rent that they were splitting between the 2 incomes, now he's not paying. You can't account for everything in life. In life, everything's okay till it's not okay. When they move in, everything's okay. The reference that you looked at the bank statements, there's 2 income earners at £100,000 each and your rent's 800. Of course it's okay. Until it's not okay and one of them has an affair and goes, and then one of them's left with £1,000 a month and 2 kids, for example, and then, they're on £1,000 a month, your rent's 800. Now you're trying to evict a single mum effectively, and you're trying to do that through court. It's a nightmare. So single lets, I've never been a massive fan of them, but now I've got around them because I've had to buy single lets, guys. Yes, I bought them for capital appreciation, and I actually bought them for rental income because it's still good rent, but the risk is so much higher now. So social housing, and I would advocate that you could even take less rent for social housing, let's say 10% less rent, and still make more money because of these things. But obviously, we're trying to get a bit above market rents. And how do we get that? We get the best locations where people are fighting for our property. So we can go, okay, this provider's offered this, you've offered this, and I've got a private person going to pay 12 months in advance. What can you offer? Oh no, they'll go, okay, we can give you 1,600 instead of 1,400. And I've done that a few times. So location where, as I said, if it's somewhere that there's not much demand, not many people want to live, they have to wait for families to want to move there, is very difficult, guys. That also goes with capital appreciation and not making as much money as me effectively because your locations are not as good. Now, guys, the reason why people come to me and go, I want to be like you, I want your property portfolio, what you actually mean is 90% of that is, no, you want the properties where I've got them, in locations I've got them, and you want the grandfather rights I've got for my HMOs, which you can't do. You can't do HMOs in those areas anymore. But that's planning well ahead and having a game plan, because it wasn't always the case, guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to buy there either. It wasn't always expensive. There wasn't always Article 4. It comes down to game plan. I had a game plan. But the point is, what they're saying is they want my locations. They're not saying they want my tenants because they can find their own. They're not saying they want the number of properties I've got because you could go and buy that tomorrow somewhere else. What they're saying is they want my locations. That's what locations first. Now, in our sourcing, guys, any client who's come to us will tell you that we are very picky on location first. We'll even tell clients to pay a bit more for the location, because I know from experience that eventually this game plan will pay off, and they will say, you know what, I did pay a bit more to have that. It was costing me a couple £100 in profit where I could have bought somewhere else, but after 2 years, boy, I'm glad I bought that location and not down in Wales. Well, I know that because I've been there, I've done that. I could have bought anywhere, and I bought in the right place. And success leaves clues, guys. You only have to look. If you download our free investment guide, you'll see all the graphs in it as to the places to buy now and where we're actively buying. Is we don't gatekeep. I'll just tell you where I'm buying in the Northwest. But yet people still go and buy a 6-bedroom all money out deal at HMO in Wales. Now, yes, they're getting one part of this right. Okay, they're getting the exit plan right because they're playing with house money. They're pulling the money out and they're getting a free house now. Are they getting the exit plan right though? Because in 10 years when they want to sell, is someone going to pay their commercial valuation for HMO let to Serco, which Serco now is closed in that area because it's closing everywhere. But for example, let's say in 4 years, now it's open in 4 years, it's closed. They can't get a renewal on the HMO from Serco or any other provider because it's in the Welsh Valley. They've remortgaged it at 400k as a commercial valuation, which at the time it was. What's the exit plan? Are they going to pay off their debt themselves and then basically they've worked for 10 years for nothing and they've lost money? Are they going to change the use of the property, which is extremely hard, but even if they did, are they going to find enough tenants to fill that, working tenants? Are they going to sell to another landlord who's not going to say, who knows about valuations and knows the exact market is not going to pay 400k for a property that they have to manually fill and has not got a social housing lease on it anymore? Do you see what I mean? They've actually thinking they've gotten the first step of the exit plan right, which technically they have, but there's two exit plans. There's exit plan, get the money out. Okay, they got the money out, which we do, but there's exit plan after 4 years, what happens? Because these contracts for social housing, they go up to 5 years. It's very rare to get a 10-year contract. It's not a problem if you're buying in Manchester, because what's going to happen is, if that social housing, if one of my social housing contracts ends in 5 years and I've got property in the northwest, not only will the value have gone up, not only will I have collected all the rent, arguably the rent I'm probably losing out because the rent's probably gone so high anyway that I don't want the 3% plus inflation increase. I want the market rent, so I can go back out to the market, see which providers there are. If you think there's not going to be any social housing providers in the northwest, in, for example, Manchester, not going to be any more homelessness, people coming out of prison, women suffering, or drug addiction, well, there is. Do you know what I mean? So there's always going to be demand. And if you think that less people are going to live in Manchester in 4 years, then one, you're crazy, but two, you shouldn't be buying there. Because you should only buy an asset, like Warren Buffett says, if you're prepared to hold it for 10 years or for the long term. They're buying assets in Wales because they can get the money out in 6 months. Fair enough. What are they going to do in 5-10 years? But sometimes they've got investors' money, so it's not really their problem. Whereas I'm playing with my own money. Yes, I'm playing with house money, but ultimately it's my own money. And most of the people watching this channel, they're playing with their own money. When you're playing with your own money, you need to be buying in locations that will never let you down, even in 10 years, and think not just for the next 6 months. I have a very holistic view when I help clients because I know they're playing with their money. I don't have many clients who come to me going, Niv, I've got $500,000 from investors. What can we do? I don't really have those clients, and I don't really want them clients, because that's when you can start being, then you can start being greedy and you can start thinking, well, it's not going to affect the client. Every one of my clients, I know their backstory, I know their family life, I know the kids, how many kids they've got, I know everything, what's happened, how they made money, which businesses they've worked. Most 99% of them have worked their arse off. So it's very important to me to respect that fact, like I've worked my arse off, and really respect the hustle because I've been there. And build them a really good long-term asset. And especially the younger guys as well who've got one property. They might not be as wealthy as my other clients, but the first 100k is the hardest. So I've got clients come to me going, I've got 100k in Dubai, I've got 100k here, I've got 300k paid off family house, I've got 100k in this investment, I want to bring 100k to you. Fair enough, yeah. But the clients who've got 30k and that's all they've got and they're 22 and they've brought it to me, that's so important to get it right. And that's why we go location first over everything. I could sell them a deal tomorrow where they get all the money out and it looks good on paper for a year, but they're not going to grow. And the more they buy, the more I make, because I charge per deal. So I will mentor, source, do everything for a certain fee. It's a one-off fee. It's the same for everyone, whether you're a professional footballer, a crypto millionaire, or a 21-year-old who's made money off reselling, right? If you buy 5, I make 5 times the money because I charge per property I help you buy and help you set up and help you rent social housing, etc., etc. My business has repeat custom every month. We're getting new customers as well, but the same clients. I want another one every 6 months. I've got loads. If I sold people deals which didn't work in 2 years or 1 year, when the tenants move out, the social housing company goes bust and they can't go again, I'm also losing money, guys. So when I say something, it's not just because I'm trying to sell you something and make a quick buck. It took me 13, 14 years to build portfolio like this, and if anyone comes to me and wants it in 6 months, unless you've got a couple of million quid in the bank, it's unrealistic. Even then, it's difficult because it doesn't matter how many money you've got in the bank. You could have 10 million in the bank. If you want the properties and they're not for sale, you can't do anything. You're not going to go knock on the door and go, I'll give you $500,000 for it, because it doesn't make financial sense. But if you want a property, 150k in a certain area, and there's only 2 for sale, and we've bought them both, you can't do anything. It doesn't matter if you've got 100k in the bank. £1 million in the bank. It's not going to happen. And that's location. So, guys, get the game plan. The game plan is to buy assets where we can get the money out, play with the house money, then use this to give it to social housing to make consistent, predictable, highest market rents. Reinvest this. Don't go and buy Lambos and stuff yet. If you want to go and buy Lambos like I did, wait until you're making 10, 20k, 30k a month. Make sure one of these rents from social housing is paying for your Lambo. The other one pays for, so one of my properties, 1 car, 2 holidays, 3 Spain, 4 holidays to Dubai, 5 Mercedes A-Class to run around here, 6 sister's car insurance, loads of expensive, guys. But that's another game then, because that all comes out of the business account anyway. So it comes out of my profit anyway. Some of it, not all of it, right? Can't say it all, but the necessities for business, right? Okay, so, but that's another game, but you really need to get this working, and it does work, guys. And once it's working and it's flowing, you just keep on building it. But this needs to be at the forefront of your mind. How many properties do you want? What's the time scale? Write it down. Number 2, what's the management plan? We don't need to, the amount of clients I get who go, I need a property round the corner from mine. I can't buy up north because I live in London. The management plan's all wrong, guys. I've not met one client yet, and they all say on the phone, Nirv, I want to be able to know what's going on. I want to come into the property and see the tenants. I want to get involved. No, you don't. What you want to do is you want to invest like Lloyds Bank do. You want a management plan, BlackRock, etc., etc. The MDs, the directors, the chief executive don't go and meet their clients and knock on the door for the tenants, right? So you want a management plan. The management plan now, 2025, social housing. Don't buy a property where you can't get social housing. That's a massive clue. If you can't get social housing in that area from any provider, I'm not talking about Serco, but any provider, don't buy it, because it's a very big clue. Okay? It means the location's wrong. It doesn't matter about HMOs, students, etc. If you can't get a good social housing provider in that area, it's a lot of red flags, guys, okay? And you can know that before you buy it, okay? We've just had one in Warrington, and the guys asked for a email stating that we can have a social housing provider, right? Which Serco used to do. I said, I can't get you that, but what I can show you now is the list of providers in that area. I can put it on Open Rent now and see how many inquiries you get in 24 hours, and there'll be hundreds. And I can assure you that if you don't want to give it social housing, I'll give you the same rent as social housing guaranteed for 5 years with my personal guarantee. That's the kind of areas you need to be buying, guys, okay? It's not like you're going to get a letter of intent anymore saying we're going to definitely take this house on social housing for this price before you buy it. It doesn't really work like that anymore because it's a live market. But what it does work is if you ring up, or if you come to us and go, we've got a property in Warrington, can you get social housing? Yes or no. I've got a property in a village in Yorkshire, can you get social housing? No. Maybe one. Then you know which one you're going to buy, aren't you? You're not going to buy in a village in Yorkshire because it's not, your exit options aren't there. So get your management plan. Exit plan should always be play with house money, take it all out, reinvest it. You don't need to sell. If you're going to do flips, do a flip. But if you're going to do a flip, you can remortgage anyway. Okay, flips are really, I mean, it's difficult now because of the stamp duty and stuff as well. So, but it is doable. So make sure all of this is in line. And then social housing management plan is fantastic. Once you know what you're doing and you're working with a provider, you even get better rates. You build a relationship with them. You know what you can buy. You know, they tell you what they want. Obviously, I know which properties. Some of my properties, HMOs, I'm even giving social housing now because, yeah, we're going to get a bit less, but we don't have a HMO to run, and the work, and we don't have the estate agent fees to pay, which is like 600 quid sometimes, right? It's just ease of mind, and then we're going straight back in, remortgaging, going straight back in, buying more. That's how I'm making thousands, guys. And then you can get into higher risk stuff. So you can get into housing like offenders and stuff like this and drug rehabs. And that is where you can clean up money. Now, to do this, you need to be a bit more advanced. Sometimes you have to work with different lenders. You have to get really close and have the operators trust you. But at that level, and buy the right property, not with neighbours, high-risk neighbours, etc. But we've got one end terrace now going into that. And I can tell you now, it's way more than any HMO would have made there, and it's in a prime location. I've had to do bed sits, etc., but the money is fantastic, and we're just going to buy more of them. And it's so good, guys, that it's so high-risk tenancies that it doesn't even get inspected by the council inspectors who want to fine landlords. I've been fined before. As a landlord, you can get a 30k civil penalty for doors missing, a fire door, because a tenant's had a party and kicked it through. Some councils do it, some councils don't, but it's the law. Now, you better believe when the council budgets are cut, etc., they're going to be coming after landlords like they already are. Guys, they can't even enter these houses because they're not even regulated by the council. Okay? They actually come under CQC, who regulate care homes, etc. So it's a very intensive use, and the money's very intensive as well, let me tell you that. So guys, make sure you buy the assets first. Now, you can also, by the way, if you're doing this social housing management plan, you can also get, for people the younger guys who don't have the money, a lot of landlords don't know all this, and they'll give you a house for 800 when its market value is probably 900, and you can give them a good guarantee and stuff. You can then get the property and do exactly the same with a management plan, and you make the money in between, the arbitrage in between. So let's say you get 1,600 from your social housing, you get 800 to the landlord, they cover all the bills, your 800 profit, you do that 10 times, you get 8,000. Now the problem is getting 8 properties for this, because the demand, that shows you how bad the demand is in these areas. So like, keep at it, you'll get it. As I said, guys, not all the landlords know this. If the average landlord who bought 20 years ago doesn't, some of them do, but not everyone knows this. It's a very young game. A lot of the operators, a lot of the intermediaries are young as well. And it's quite cool to be involved and to kind of help your mate's company, social housing company, you benefit, you're teaching other people to do it, I'm teaching 18-year-olds to do the rent-to-rent model. It's kind of a new game, and you have to operate like this. You can't operate with the same mindset going, I'll rent to a family, if you don't pay, I'll kick them out. It's not going to happen. You're going to be in court, and you could have your assets frozen. There's all sorts of stuff that could happen now, which I weren't doing even 10 years ago, guys, when I first started this seriously. So then you'll get more contacts, you'll get a reputation with social housing, they'll come to you for more properties, you can offer more to landlords, etc., etc. But always at this right time, you're playing with house money, very little money in for you, and you're growing the portfolio to 50 houses, 20 houses, whatever you want, because this is watertight, guys, okay? Guys, if you want to learn more, click a yes in the comment. Do me a favor as well, like, comment, subscribe. The more I get, the more it's easier to do these videos 2 to 3 times a week, giving away more of my blueprint. So if you don't mind, hit yes and hit a like. And also, guys, yes below for our free property investment guides, which shows you exactly how to do this. Live examples from clients as to how it's very easy to make money in property. It's not so easy to manage it. That's why we've got management plan. It's very easy to have a game plan and an exit plan and to actually get money, make money in property if you've got the right sourcing and the right management plan. Guys, I've been Nim Zamjetti. See you on the next one.